Welcome everybody to Wednesday night Bible study at Beacon of Hope Ministries. We are glad you are with us, and as always, we enjoy doing these Bible studies on Wednesday night. I'm Pastor Marcia McAllister. The guy that just walked out of the picture is my associate pastor, Jim Ellsbury, and he will be leading our discussion next Wednesday and for the next few Wednesdays. Becky is here. We got Nan, we got Eileen, we got Pat. And we will probably have some of our Zoomers joining us soon. And for those of you that are new to these Bible studies on Wednesday night, it is a conversation, really, about what we're studying at the time. What we've been studying the last 3 or 4 weeks is the book of Job. The reason that is because Job is one of the books that's called one of the wisdom books in the Bible. And on Sunday morning, I'm teaching a series called Walking in Wisdom. So Job being a wisdom book kind of goes along with what we're doing on Sunday morning. So anyway, that's where we are. So we're in the book of Job. We want to also remind you always that our Wednesday night Bible studies and our Sunday morning sermons are on our YouTube channel. And that, if you have a pen, it's capital letters BOHM, which stands for Beacon of Hope Ministries, space, global. That is the name of our YouTube channel. You can find, almost 2 years worth of teachings on that, including last year's series on heaven, which was 45 weeks, called the Forevermore series. And we just have done so much, so many series, it's crazy. But they're all there. So go to YouTube and just type in capital letters, BOHM, space, global. So that's what's going on. So this Facebook post will be, at the end of this, it'll be shared, and you can share it with others if you like. So in the book of Job, and a lot of people have heard his name, Job is probably the oldest the book in the Bible. And a lot of people feel like it was written about 4,000 years ago. That's a long time. What else would you like to say about the book of Job, Pastor Jim?
Job certainly lived about 4,000 years ago. Not quite sure when the book was written.
Right, we don't know.
Could have been as late as Solomon.
Right.
Who knows? It could have been Solomon that wrote it.
Yeah, right.
But just from the places that are mentioned, the words that are used, it dates back to the time of Abraham, almost.
Yeah,
so like 4,000 years.
About 4,000 years ago. And some of you may say, well, how can that apply to my life today?
Good question.
That's why this is called a wisdom book, because it does apply to every one of our lives. And that's what we specialize in here at Beacon of Hope, and that is practical Christian living. Taking the principles of God's Word, applying it to our everyday lives. Book of Job does that. If you've missed any of these in this series, again, go to our YouTube channel and you go, or on Facebook and go backwards and catch up. So tonight we are going to start with a couple things in Job chapter 7 before we go on to 8 and 9. And we left off last week.
I doubt that you can get through 8.
Oh, I don't know. Job chapter 7. If you have that in a minute, we're going to start with verse 3 in Job chapter 7. And he's talking here. And he had a theme of what's going on right now where Job is that Job has been totally and completely devastated. Okay? Why, you ask? Because he has gone through tremendous loss. And some of you out there in Facebook and YouTube land may have gone through times where you suffered greatly. Job is an example of somebody who had it all going for him. 10 children, all the wealth you can imagine, all of that, and he lost it all in a space of just a few days. That's the beginning of the book of Job. He loses everything. Then if that's not bad enough, he loses his health. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, how Job went through a period of time where he was so sick he was covered in boils from head to toe. And he was actually using broken pieces of pottery to scratch his boils open. And I mean, he was a mess. And that we talked about that a few weeks ago in Job chapter 2, verse 10, where his wife says, Job, you're in such a mess, why don't you just curse God and die? Okay? That was a very supportive wife there. So why don't you just curse God and die? And Job basically ignores that, obviously. Yes, thankfully. The thing that you don't know when you're reading in the middle of the book of Job is what happened in Job chapter 1. The other thing that you don't know is that Job did not know what happened behind the scenes. What happened behind the scenes in Job 1, I'm going to tell you very quickly, and you can read it on your own, is that we see the entrance of Satan into the picture of the universe. And Satan comes before God, and God says, you know my servant Job, he's upright, he trusts me, he loves me, and all that. Satan says, take all his goods away, take all his wealth away, take his health away, and he'll just curse you and die. Okay, so this book is about the testing and the trials that Job went through and how his attitude changes. So that's where we pick up tonight. In Job chapter 7, look at verse 3. He says this, so am I allotted months of futility and suffering, and long nights of trouble and misery are appointed to me? So that's his question. And this is a question a lot of us have had in our lives.
Yeah.
God, am I going through this suffering, whatever this suffering is?
Yeah.
Lose everything
When
financially,
is it gonna end?
or sickness, or terrible things happen in my family, or
What
whatever.
version are you reading that?
Huh?
What version are you reading?
I'm in the amplified. And so he's asking this question, am I going to go through all this for long periods of time? Now, years ago, I thought that Job suffered for many years. That was an ignorance on my part. He only suffered for about 9 months.
Yeah, that can be a long
But that's
time.
a long time. But when you think about it, that's how long it takes to birth a baby, right? And as you are birthing that baby, you know that there is some similarities there. So it was only about 9 months. But Job is asking this question, verse 3 of Job chapter 7. Am I going to go through all this trouble and misery that are pointed me? When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise and the night be gone? Here's what Job was asking. Am I going to continue to suffer?
Right.
And if I'm going to continue to suffer, when I lay down at night and I wake up, it's like, why am I waking up if I'm going to continue just to suffer?
Why? What's the point?
What's the point? Pastor Jim, let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I look at this, and what struck me is, in verse 4, when I lie down, I say, when shall I rise? That same wording was used in Deuteronomy chapter 28. The curses. You
Okay.
would say, oh, when it's daytime, I wish it was night. When it's night, I wish it was day.
Right.
And I think Job is starting to think, because that's used in terms of cursing and
Right.
walking away from God. And I just think it's interesting that Job uses that here, because maybe he's starting to believe, maybe I did something.
Oh, I think he's definitely thinking
You know,
that.
what have I
done?
And he asks later on. I like it because he does ask later on.
Yeah.
What have I done? I mean, it's a little bit later on, I think maybe 10 or 11.
Yeah.
What have I done? What have I done? And I think he's starting to question, am I righteous or not? And as we'll see, that shifts into self-righteousness at one point. But I think he's starting to think, maybe I did do something wrong. And my life is miserable. Why bother?
Well, all his friends think the same thing, too.
All his friends think that.
But they assumed early on.
They
he'd done
assumed.
something.
Bildad, which we're going to talk about Bildad here in chapter 8. Bildad assumes that Job is getting what he deserves.
Well, he thinks because of the sudden death of the children and everything that they had to have done something.
They had to do
Very
something
bad.
terrible.
Yeah.
Right. And don't we see that with people around us or in society?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that person suffering so much. They must have done something, right?
Yeah,
To
why
cause
is it
this.
happening?
What are they? They're reaping what they sowed, right?
Right.
And so in chapter 7, Job is at a point where he has no hope. In verse 6, my days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and I are spent without hope. So he has lost his hope. And we talked about that last week, so I'm not going to go into a discussion about hope, except to point you all to Hebrews 6:19, which is on our wall right over here in our Bible study room. And Hebrews 6:19 says hope is an anchor to our soul. Okay? And so we talked about this last week. And it just means that if you lose your hope, guys, it's hard. It's really hard to hang in there. Would y'all agree? Would anybody like to comment on that? Because it is. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, when I was younger and I threw the Bible down and stuff, when I came back about 12 years, 13 years later.
12 years later. Wow.
Yeah, I said,
Wow.
I got my hope back. I actually found my hope back.
Found your hope.
You know, so
Absolutely.
it gave me a reason to live on.
Well, I think a lot of people lose their hope because, just like Joe, circumstances have absolutely overwhelmed them, right? And they don't see a reason to live, because life is bad. Nanny, you want to comment on that?
Well, I'm thinking there were times I was very despondent and
Yeah.
just did not want to live. Was not really. Was suicidal. Didn't commit suicide, but I mean, that was how.
It's good to know. It's good to know. It's good to know.
Yeah, I did not commit suicide.
Thanks for verifying that.
I did not do
Did you attempt it?
Did you attempt
Did
it?
not attempt it.
Oh, okay,
Did
good.
not attempt it,
Yeah,
but no, but I mean that was how bad I was.
Yeah.
And the only reason that I didn't was because I had a small child.
Well, and I
I
think
didn't want to do that to him.
I think a lot of people in our audience would probably say there have been times in their life where they were so beat down. Life was so hard. They were so discouraged. They were so defeated that it was like, why live, right? I mean, that's not uncommon, guys.
I've been there.
And does God accept us right where we are in a situation like that? The answer is yes, He does, right? Now, we're going to see that Job's opinion of God changes, right? Because he is quite influenced by these three friends who come to support him. Now, friends speaking into our lives can be a good thing.
It can also be a bad
And
thing.
it can also be a bad thing, right? Especially if they come with an attitude of condemning us, condemnation,
Yeah.
right?
Choose your friends better.
Yes, that's right. Job chapter 8. Okay, let's go over there. Well, let's go first Job 7:20 before we go to 8. At the end of 7:20, Job is saying, well, let's just read the whole verse. And I'm in the Amplified Bible, guys. If I have sinned, what harm have I done to you, O watcher of mankind? So Job is saying to God, all right, did I sin? What did I do?
And what did I do to you?
What did I do to you? Right? That's a good way to write it, to speak it. Why have you set me as a target for you? A target. To target. Right? Something you're shooting at. Okay? So that I'm a burden to myself. So he's feeling like he is a target of God's wrath.
Well,
Really.
Who wouldn't have that thought?
Right. Okay,
That's
now.
a normal thing for someone to feel.
Oh, absolutely. Now, we talked last week and kind of the week before about he had three friends that came to visit him. They sat for 7 whole days and just stared at him because he was so miserable and so disgusting and stinky and everything. I mean, he was awful. Now, then they get up the courage to start speaking to Job. So the first one was Eliphaz. We talked about him last week. Y'all can go back and listen to that Bible study. Second one is Bildad. Let's talk about Bildad, PJ.
Well, before you go there,
Okay.
I noticed I was rereading 7, 8, 9 today.
Yes.
And 7:17.
7:17.
What
yes.
is man that you magnify him,
Mm-hmm.
and that you are concerned about him? Does that sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
What is man that you are mindful of him, or the Son of Man that you take
Psalm
notice?
8:4.
And I thought, look at the difference though, because in Psalm 8, and I think it's David, wrote that psalm. It's just saying it with awe and wonder. You know, wow, look, you made us a little lower than the angels.
Right.
What are we that
Right.
you would take notice of us? And yet
In other
here
words,
it's
David was saying that with humility.
with humility and awe.
And
here Job is saying it.
it.
You're so great. You don't. Basically, the tone behind it, I thought, was you don't even care, Lord.
Yes.
You don't even care.
It's Psalm 8, 4, and 5, if anybody wants to go there. And
Psalms 8, 4, and 5?
Yeah, Psalm chapter 8, Psalm 8, verses 4, 5, 6. What is man, and you just quoted that very well.
Thank you.
that you are mindful of him and the son of earthborn man, that you care for him. Yet you have made him a little lower than God, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. You made him, that's us, to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. And here the psalmist is saying, this is the Psalm of David, is saying, that's great. That's who we are. We are the children
David
of God.
is praising God in that.
Yeah, he is.
And yet when Job says, it's like,
When Job says it, it's like,
yeah, what is man that you magnify him? Basically saying, we're so insignificant, why do you even bother that you're,
Yeah.
and that you are concerned about
that's right.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I reread that, I thought, wow, look at the difference in attitude between
Difference. Yeah.
Job and David.
Oh, absolutely. Well, look at Job 7:7. I thought we were getting out of 7, but we're not yet. Job 7:7. Remember that my life is but breath, a puff of wind. This is Job talking. A sigh. My eye will not see good again. Do you all see that in Job 7:7? Job is so discouraged, so defeated, that now he's going to say something drastic like, I'm never going to see God's blessings again. I am never going to see any good. Have you ever felt like that before?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone.
I think most of us have. Like, God, where'd you go? Where'd you go? What's going on? Why are you doing
I
this?
feel abandoned.
Why have you abandoned me? Now let's go to Job chapter 8. And now his second friend decides to have a speech, because there's a lot of speeches in the book of Job. His name is Bildad, the Shuhite. He answered and he
Shortest
said,
man in the Bible.
huh?
Shortest man in the Bible.
The shortest man in the Bible? Bildad was, oh, the Shuhites?
You've never heard that?
No, I've never heard that joke.
It
Shuhite.
was-
Got it.
It was Nehemiah, but then there was
Nehemiah.
And there was Bildad the
Bildad.
Shuhite.
Bildad the Shuhite. Everybody got that? The height of a shoe.
Uh-huh.
All right. Took us a while to get that.
Bad joke.
Okay, no, it's cute. Job chapter 8. Here's what he says here. Bildad. How long will you say these things? Who's he talking to?
Job.
Job.
He's talking to Job. And how long will the words of your mouth be a mighty wind?
Okay, that's just wrong.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
Oh.
Well, you're just saying Job is just blowing off, basically.
Yeah, he's saying, what are you
You're
doing?
just saying
Because-
nonsense.
Because he's saying that because God's justice, he doesn't just judge people for no reason, he thinks, you know.
That's
what a lot of us
exactly
believe that.
right.
We believe that God judges us for a reason, you know. And this is what he's saying here is, you know he's judging you for a reason. You know there's a reason behind it. Because
That's
you took their
exactly right.
lives and everything. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because you suffered so greatly to lose 10 children in one day through a hurricane. That's Job chapter 1. Y'all, if you haven't read Job chapter 1, you need to go read it. 1 and 2. Whoa, wow. All his wealth, everything gone in a matter of a few days, or, you know. So, now let's go to verse 5 of Job chapter 8. If you would diligently seek God and implore the compassion and favor of the Almighty. Okay, wait a minute. Who's talking? Bildad's talking to Job. And he's saying, here's what you need to do. If you would diligently seek God and implore the compassion and favor of Almighty, then, this is one of those if-then things, then, if you are pure and upright, surely now he will awaken for you and restore your righteous place. What is that saying? Bildad is saying, you know, if you're just you just need to seek God. Because if you seek God, you'll get back in his good graces.
Yeah, stop
God's going to
crying.
forgive you. Get on your knees and
Get
beg
on your
for
knees,
forgiveness.
beg for forgiveness. That's exactly
That's
right.
right.
And in verse 6 of Job 8, it's like he thinks God's asleep. Well, you know God doesn't sleep. So, but Bildad says he must be asleep. That must be where he is. And so Bildad is very impatient with Job. I mean, you talk about a friend. This is his friend, Bildad, who's basically saying, come on, get with the program. Look down at verse 8. Inquire of past generations and check it out. Figure it out. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I said I took it a little bit differently. I mean, of course, his
First,
assumption
five.
about 5 and 6, and then I want to touch on 7.
Okay?
You know, of course he does. Just the assumption is Job did something wrong.
Yeah.
And
Right.
actually Job did, but we'll probably find that out later. So he's just saying, you know what? You need to seek God. He'll come to your defense
Right.
if you just seek him. But I like verse 8 again as I was rereading this. It's like I never caught that.
Job chapter 8, verse 8.
No, verse 7. I'm sorry.
7.
Though your beginning was insignificant, yet your end will increase
Isn't that?
greatly. Bildad almost prophesied chapter 42 of the book of Job.
He prophesied it.
I love that.
Yeah, because his attitude really wasn't that, but it came out of his mouth. Okay, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. And
But
God,
the rest of the stuff Bildad is saying is he's
well, not
mad.
crap, but it's
He's
bad.
mad. He's not saying anything positive. But then, right there in the end of verse 7, you're right. He says, your end will greatly increase, which is what happened. That's like giving you a preview of what's going to happen here soon. Let's go to verse 9. Here's what Bildad says about our life here on earth. We are only of yesterday and we know nothing. Our days on earth are like a shadow, just a breath or a vapor. Verse 10, will they, the fathers, the past generations, not teach you and tell you and utter words from their hearts, the deepest part of their nature? In other words, Job, haven't you learned anything from the generations before you? Job, come on, doesn't your life experience or the experience of your relatives teach you anything? Okay? What is Bildad's attitude here, guys? One thing I wrote down in my notes as I was reading this was Bildad is impatient with Job.
Yeah, it's
like,
time to get out
I'm,
of
all right,
the
I'm tired of sitting here looking at you with boils covering your head to toe and you feeling sorry for yourself.
All you have to do is get on your knees and pray.
Yeah, just all you have to do. You're right, Eileen. Just get on your knees and pray. Get this straightened out, Job, and you're going to be fine. Guys, there is a time sometimes of suffering that takes a period of time for things to work out on the inside of us. You want to address that?
Well, yeah, and the
Thanks for
advice,
sharing that.
the advice to seek God is not bad advice, but it requires humility. And at this point, Job's losing his humility.
Yeah.
I mean, we see from his speeches, he's angry at God. He doesn't know why, and he's starting to accuse God, and that's the dangerous thing to do, because if you're accusing God of something, then you're not in a place where you can be taught, where you can learn anything.
Right.
I know. I mean, we've all been there. I have.
So Bildad is saying you can't be taught, Job. Is that correct? Is that how you're seeing it?
I don't know if that's. I mean, that's where Job's at. And I think maybe Bildad picked up on that. You need to implore the compassion of the Almighty. Seek God and implore the compassion of the Almighty.
Right.
And that takes humility. And Job is starting to build up resentment, not humility.
Right.
And
Because he doesn't see he did any wrong. He doesn't see where he fell short,
He does not.
All this stuff, all this calamity hit him all at once, and he doesn't understand what's going on. I mean, he's been trying to live an upright life.
That's faith as well, no? I mean, he doesn't have it.
He doesn't have it. He's beat up.
And I guess the
Well,
question
he
is,
has it to a point, because he keeps asking God, why is this happening?
Yeah, because he goes on to the day in chapter 9 where it starts out, this is his response. Indeed, I'm truly aware that this is so, but how can a person become right with God? He doesn't understand what he's
He
doing.
doesn't. That's a good point. That's good. Okay, so let's go back a second and look at Job chapter 8, verses 5 and 6. Now remember who's talking here. It's Bildad. If you would diligently seek God, Job 8, 5 and 6, and implore the compassion and favor of the Almighty, then, remember this, then, if you are pure and upright, surely now he will awaken for you and restore your righteous place. So basically, Bildad is saying, here's the problem. You, Job, are suffering because God is not unjust. And if you just say the right things, the magic formula, God will come to your defense. He will suddenly awaken, like we were talking about. What's wrong, Becky, with that?
It's not a matter of verbalizing it. It has to be in your heart.
This is true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just saying it's not going to cut it.
Right. Well, this is implied that there's
His friends are sitting there. His friends are there,
Yeah,
sitting
telling
there,
them to say it.
watching him in all this stuff, and they don't know how else to respond but to tell them how they got right with God, how
That's
they
exactly
seek
right.
out God. So they're only hitting them from their own knowledge and their
And
own
hasn't
perspective.
that happened to some of us in our
Yes,
lives when we're
yes.
going through a difficult time? That people around us love us and care about us. And they think we must have done something to cause this. And yet, a lot of times,
Just desserts, huh?
yes, the just desserts. Sometimes it's just that we need to learn something from the trial.
Mhm.
Pastor Jim, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and sometimes things happen to us and we don't know why.
Right.
And that's, not only did Bildad not have patience, but Job didn't have patience either. I mean, yeah, his trial was horrible, horrible, horrible.
I mean, where would you have patience with all those sores all over your body? My
But
friend would be
you-
saying,
but
Lord,
Take me.
come on, Lord, heal this stuff. This is
Oh, you
crazy.
say take
You
me,
know,
right?
I'm
One
just
or the
saying.
other,
But
right?
Definitely.
remember, but
Or end it, right?
the big difference
Right.
is
Or end it.
we're on this side of the cross, so we can answer Job's questions.
But back there,
They
Right?
didn't have
How
to
can a
go
man
to
be
the
righteous
seven,
with
right.
God? By getting saved.
right, but back there, this was not the case.
Right, exactly.
And they were having a hard time. So let's throw out Proverbs 17:3. You don't have to go there, or you can go there, but I wrote it down in my notes here out of the Passion Translation that I've been teaching on out of in Sundays. The Passion Translation, Proverbs 17:3. Here's what it says. In the same way, this is before Jesus came on the earth. Proverbs was written by Solomon, David's son. That would be before Jesus ever came to the earth. So here's what Solomon understood. In the same way that gold and silver are refined by fire, the Lord purifies your heart by the tests and trials of life. Is that not good? That is the pen of Solomon, David's son. In the same way that gold and silver are refined by fire, the Lord purifies your heart by the tests and trials of life. We mentioned that verse last week. Put it in your notes somewhere because it's really good. Proverbs 17:3. Because that's a big why. Why do we go through trials and tests? Because God's working on our hearts.
Refining us. And
Yes.
I think I made the point maybe last week before. God doesn't test us so much so that he can find out what's in our hearts, because he already knows. But he tests us so that we can find out what's in our heart.
Sure. True.
I have friends that say something to me all the time. They say something like, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
something like that?
that's
That's in Proverbs.
Yeah, something
What
like
does that mean?
I got friends that say that to me all the time. They say, iron sharpens iron. I say, okay.
So
Yeah,
one
exactly.
So one person sharpens another.
One person sharpens another, right? The things that happen in life, we learn from those. Okay, so Bildad thinks here in Job chapter 8, verses 5, 6, all this, he reasons that God is not unjust. So therefore, Job and his family are suffering because they sinned. That's what Bildad thinks.
Well, yeah, verse 4. If your sons sinned against him, then he delivered them in the power of their transgression.
This is what
Yeah, but Job has no clue what the sin or who did it.
Right, but see, at this point, Job does not know that the devil was given permission by God in Job chapters 1 and 2.
And we never
To
find
test
out that
Job.
he actually learns that.
Yeah, we don't know that he learns that, no. But Bildad is basically saying, okay, you guys are suffering, you and your whole family, your family died, all because of your sinfulness, okay? Which, guys, we talked a couple weeks ago about Matthew 7:7. Jesus said, judge not that you be not judged. And you know what?
Shall be judged. What measure you meet, it shall measure unto you again. And why
Very
would you
good.
in your brother's eye?
There you go. She's memorized that. Okay. So basically, Bildad is saying this. Job should ask for mercy. And if he has turned his life around and become upright, then God will restore him. In verse 13, let's look at that. Here's Bildad's thinking of Job at this point, though. So are the paths of all who forget God, and the hope of the godless will perish. Okay? So Bildad is confident that Job is a hypocrite, basically. That Job has done something that caused all this to come on him and his family, and therefore Job can sit and talk about God and all these things, but Job, you missed the boat. You're the one that's in wrong. You're in the wrong. Does everybody see all that? In Job chapter 8, verses 11 to 19 is really kind of a poem or I don't know, maybe a song or something. The whole thing is
It's all poetic, yeah.
it's all poetic, and basically
Poetic.
yeah. Look at verse 20 of Job 8. Behold, God will not reject a man of integrity. Okay, so the implication is what? What's the implication there?
He has no integrity.
He has no integrity. That he is, if God will not reject, quote unquote, whatever reject means here, reject, he's putting an equal sign between rejection by God and suffering. He's saying because this guy is suffering so bad, God's rejected him. Right? And so verse 20, God will not reject a man of integrity, nor will he strengthen or support evildoers. And verse 21, PJ, let's get your opinion here. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with joyful shouting if you are found blameless.
Well, the last part's the amplification, which is not in.
Those who hate you will be clothed with shame.
Yeah, mine. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouting. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the tent of the wicked will be no longer.
Okay.
Again, he's almost prophesying what happens in chapter 42.
Right.
You know, because Job does end up regaining everything.
So he's saying those things, Bildad. Are they meant to be encouragement to Job?
I think so.
Okay. So
Yeah,
he's saying
I think
there's
he's
hope.
trying to- he's saying that there is hope. Although Job can't see it, we understand that from chapter 9, verse 1.
Here, let's go to chapter 9, verse 1.
You know, because he's saying if you do these things like we talked about here in verses 5, 6, and 7, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then Job answered 9:1. In truth, I
9:1.
know this is so, but how can a man be right before God?
Okay, this is before Jesus came and went to the cross, so we know the answer to that
And
now.
it's before,
But before,
and it's
this
even
is
before the law was given on Mount Sinai.
right. This is before all of that, right? So,
And I like
Go ahead,
what he
go ahead.
says here.
go ahead.
If one wished to dispute with him, he cannot answer him once in 1,000 times. Speaking, if you want to dispute with God,
Job chapter 9, verse 3.
you know, wise in heart and mighty in strength, who has defied him, God, without harm? Okay.
In that, well, again, that's blaming God right there in verse 4. Do you all see that in
Yes.
Job 9, 4? God, Bildad is saying,
No, this is
no,
Job.
this is Job. God is wise in heart and mighty in strength, who has ever defied or challenged him and remained unharmed. So, how does he reconcile that with the fact that he's harmed right now? Physically, financially, everything.
But again, Job may be looking at this like, did I defy him somewhere? You know, in the next few verses, he just talks about how great God is and all the power of God.
Yeah, for the next, what,
Well, about
Oh.
7 verses.
5 to 10, he's talking about the great things of God here.
And
So
that's
he
Job
understands God's greatness, because in Job 9, starting with verse 5, it is God, this is Job talking, it's God who removes the mountains and they do not know it, when he overturns them in his anger, who shakes the earth out of its place, his pillars tremble, who commands the sun, it does not shine, who alone stretches out the heavens. He's acclaiming to God greatness, okay, who seals up the stars, who alone stretches out the heavens, tramples down the waves of the sea. So Job has an understanding of how great God is. I think one of the problems we face in our culture now, y'all can comment and tell me if I'm wrong or right. Who's up there with us so we can get your opinion? Who's there? Can you
It
tell
looks
us?
like Allie.
Allie, are you on?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay.
Who's thinking?
Are you hearing what we're saying?
We just caught the last part of it. We came in a little late.
Okay, so we are in Job chapter 9, where Job is talking about the greatness of God. But Bildad, we just talked about Bildad, who is basically saying, Job, you must have brought all this on yourself.
Well, Job is trying to figure it out too.
And Job's trying to figure
He's
it
trying
out.
to figure out. That's why he's saying all this stuff. He's trying to figure out, where did I fall short? What did I do?
He
You know,
is.
why is all this calamity?
Why
Why
me?
is everything going on? You know?
Why me?
Yeah.
Don't we do that? Allie, you want to comment on any of this, even though you're just thrusting you in here right now, but you know this book pretty well.
Well, I mean, there are times we're going to wonder and we're going to be asking questions when things happen to us. You know, we're going to be asking, hey, is there something that I've done to cause this? You know, how's my walk with my Lord? Is it where it needs to be or not? And of course, the influences of someone else talking to me about it, you know, can easily persuade me also if my faith is not strong.
Right.
I can be persuaded to think probably not in the most productive way. Example, for, you know, y'all know our truck has been down and it's been down for a week now.
Yeah.
And we usually ask ourselves, well, Lord, did we cause this? Is this something we have done?
Right.
And we've had, you know, folks outside the church, you know, throw in and give in their opinion on things. But we know that it's all God. And it really has been all God. The whole way we have been taken care of us completely, 100%. We now see back, we can look back in retrospect and say, okay, you know what? We now understand why God allowed those things to happen in our lives. And maybe Job is doing that. Maybe he's going to begin to ponder as to why, you know.
Yeah. I think you're right, and you're right practically speaking, even in your own life right now. When our human tendency is very much, God, why? That's who we are, right? Why do we try to analyze it, right? And I think part of the reason we try to analyze it, Allie, is because we don't want to make the same mistake again. If we've made a mistake that got us into some mess, we don't want to make that same mistake again.
Right.
Right?
Right, because people will go back and rehash what happened.
That's right.
Think about, what did I do to cause this?
Right.
And what did I do to get past this?
Exactly. Allie, your comment on any of that? So what did you decide on your situation?
Well, we got a call today. As a matter of fact, we got a call from Prime just about an hour ago, almost. And so we've been on the phone with them, trying to go back and forth. They have a loaner for us waiting in Salt Lake City.
Cool.
And so now we're just going to simply, pack things up in the next couple of days, and we're going to head over to Salt Lake City and pick that loaner up. And while we thought our part was ready to go, but unfortunately it's not. And again, that's just all in God's timing. We don't know, but it'll be there when it gets to be there. In the meantime, we're going to run a loaner, and we'll just start running loads probably starting on Sunday.
Okay, so patience, right? Perseverance. Would you start to say, Becky?
How are you going to get there?
Lots of perseverance, lots of flexibility, trusting that God has it all under control.
Right, exactly. And she's being Delta, so they fly everywhere. So you can fly to Salt Lake, right?
Yes, we sure can.
Yeah. They could fly here to see us, but they didn't.
I know.
Well, they didn't come here because it's too hot.
We were going to be headed down there possibly Friday or Saturday before the news came out.
Oh, okay.
But we were going to try to be there before we actually got the call today. We were going to try to surprise y'all by Sunday.
Oh, wow. So you can surprise us some other time. We'll take it anytime.
We will.
We'll even let Becky pick you up at the airport. So
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
volunteering me.
Always do.
Yes, you do.
Romans 5, 1-4. Let's go there for just a minute. Because it occurred to me as I was working on this and reading some of this, that one of the things that God wants us to learn is how to persevere. How to hang in there with patience. You know, chapter 5, verse 1-4. I am in the Amplified Bible, and I'll go slow because we're going to stop and talk about it. Therefore, since we have been justified, that is acquitted of sin, but Job was not because he didn't understand any of that, and Jesus had not come yet. let us grasp the fact that we have peace with God and the joy of reconciliation with Him through our Lord Jesus Christ. Verse 2, through Him, Jesus. This is the advantage we have now that Job did not have. We also have access by faith into this remarkable state of grace in which we firmly and safely and securely stand. Let us rejoice in our hope and the confident assurance of experiencing and enjoying the glory of our great God, manifestation of His excellence and power. So verse 3, I want to get there. Not only this, but with joy let us exalt in our sufferings and rejoice in our hardships. Okay, we have a big advantage that Job did not have. Jesus came to this earth. He took our sins. He took our sicknesses. He took our emotional crap in His body on the cross, right? He did all that. So we can rejoice in our hardships. And knowing that hardship, distress, pressure, trouble, produces patient endurance. And endurance, proven character, and proven character, hope, and confident assurance of eternal salvation. That's what we have. And one of the things in the study of Job, we've got to see what we have that was different than what Job did not have, because he was born way back before Jesus.
We have Jesus' promises.
We have all these promises. And we can be assured that the good can come out of suffering.
Yes.
Good can. Pat, you want to comment on that, or anybody else? No?
In some of my prayers, when things are going lousy, I will ask Him, what can I do to get out of this?
It's a good question.
You know, help me to focus where my mind should be,
Right.
so that I can take care of whatever's needed.
Well,
But I don't play the blame game.
and that's true. That's true. But that's one of the reasons is because we have Jesus
Yes.
and what He's done. Allie, how does this apply to you? Let us exult in our sufferings and rejoice in our hardships, knowing that hardship produces patient endurance, and endurance proven character, and proven character hope.
Well, we have not been down, I would say, at all, morally speaking. Our spirits have been very high.
Okay.
Despite everything that has happened in the last week or transpired in the last week, I'll be honest with you, we literally have been rejoicing. We wake up with laughter. We just rejoice because we know that all things, and I keep repeating the verse, that all things work together for good to them that are called according to His purpose. We literally have just latched onto that verse.
Good.
And there is no, there's no negativity. There's no dark cloud in this whole situation. But rather, we know that it's just going to be 10 times fold of such a huge blessing that's going to come out of this.
Right.
Her voice is no more sick.
I know. And you had COVID a couple weeks ago. Listen to you. You sound strong.
Yes. Right.
In Job 9:17, let's go back there a minute. He's accusing God of doing the things that really are what Satan's doing. Job 9:17, He bruises me, meaning God, with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause. Look at that verse. Job is saying, all this suffering I'm going through, it's God. God's doing this to me. Does everybody see that? He really does feel that way. You remember I told you, let's put some verses in your notebooks of things to remember, concepts from here. One of them that just hit me today very strongly as I was reading some of this is 1 John 3:8. Okay? 1 John 3:8 says that Jesus came to undo the works of the devil. And the word undo there is the Greek word L-U-O, luo. And it means to untie and undo. Like, have you ever seen a knot? You just cannot seem to get that knot undone, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, the Greek word there in 1 John 3:8 is, John says, Jesus came to undo the works of the devil. So are we going to have things thrown at us, Allie?
Mhm.
What's the answer to that?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
we are. What do we do with that? Romans 5, 1-4. Meditate on that when you can this week. These are the things that God allows us to go through. Not that God puts on us, but He allows us to go through so that He can do the work of perseverance, patience, endurance, proven character.
And all of this builds faith.
And all this builds faith. And it changes us, right?
Yes, it does.
If we never go through a hard time, if we
wouldn't
never,
appreciate it.
we would not know the power of God.
Yeah.
What, Eileen? Go ahead.
know the difference.
We would know the difference if we don't ever go through these hard times. Allie, you want to speak to that? And then we're gonna wrap this up here in just a minute.
Time goes fast.
Time goes way too fast. Yes, it does. When we're having a good time like this.
But a lot of people, they take it to another level though. They take, well, you deserve that to happen to you because you did this, or
Right.
you're doing that.
Couldn't just
you know?
happen. Yeah.
People blame,
Well,
God's doing that to you because you said this, or you acted that way.
But remember, yes, I agree some people do that, but what you reap, what you sow.
Yeah.
If you sow to the flesh, you reap destruction.
And then, but then,
But
yes,
our job is not to condemn them.
right.
You can't, you were promiscuous and now you have HIV. I run into this a lot at work. Okay, you were promiscuous and this was kind of what happened.
Right.
But it's not, we're not God, we cannot judge. Somebody screws up, I can't judge them for that.
Yeah, but people love to point fingers.
Yeah, that was
Of
exactly
course
what I
they
was
do.
gonna
But I'm
say.
saying as Christians,
People love to do
as
this.
Christians, we don't have that luxury.
No, we are not to do that. We're not to.
Christians do it all the time.
They do it all the time. All the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why people are going, churches are full of hypocrites. Well, yeah, we're all people work in progress, right?
They like to point the finger to let you know that I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, they're
Right.
justified and you're not.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just, you ain't just.
I guess one of the themes of tonight that we can take away is we're all going to go through difficult things in life. We are going to go through times of persecution.
Of course.
And, that's
So
where,
we wouldn't
On Job
appreciate
9, on Job 9, verse 20, it says, if I justify myself, my own mouth shall condemn me. If I say I am perfect, it shall also prove me perverse. So what comes out of the mouth may not necessarily be what's so.
Well, if
Well,
we
that's
didn't
right.
go through hard times or situations, we wouldn't appreciate the good things that happen.
that's exactly right. Okay, let's finish this whole discussion. I think it's been really good, by the way.
So where are you at?
Matthew 5:11, God just told me this. I wasn't planning on going there, but this is where I think we need to go.
Okay, we're all shocked.
Yeah, you're not shocked. Matthew 5:11, Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, blessed and morally courageous and spiritually alive with life, joy, and God's
You can
goodness.
tell that's the old Amplified.
That's the Amplified. Are you, when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil things against you because of your association with me? Verse 12 of Matthew chapter 5, be glad and exceedingly joyful, for your reward in heaven is great. Amplified, it says absolutely inexhaustible.
Yes.
For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. In other words, guys, we have to develop a different attitude than Job had.
The passion sounds better.
Okay, tell me in the
So
passion.
leap for joy, since your heavenly reward is great, for ye are being rejected the same way the prophets were before you.
Oh, I love the Passion Translation. That is great. That is right on. Allie, your comments on any of that? Did you hear all that?
Yes, I did. Well, what I take from these last 5 minutes is that, of course, the Lord lives inside of me. Jesus lives inside me. So the power of God resides in each and every one of us, living on the inside. We are not the head, we're not the tail. We are above and not beneath. No weapon formed against us shall prosper.
Amen.
We are more than conquerors.
Amen.
Jesus
Right.
loves us. And we are just supposed to continue to have victory.
Yeah.
Regardless of the circumstance, we need to continue to have that focus of faith
Right.
on on the promises of God.
But it's so easy to take your eyes off of God too during the
prize,
bad
right?
stuff.
Oh, it
During the
is.
bad stuff,
Oh,
it's
it
real
is.
easy
Eyes off the
to
prize.
be diverted. you
Eyes
know?
off the prize. Yeah, it's very easy to do that because we get our eyes centered on the problem, just like Job did.
Consumed.
Consumed by it, yes, overwhelmed by it. And what's going on here? Wow. I'm going to go to every one of you if you have a final comment, and we'll wrap this up tonight. You have a comment?
I do.
All right,
I'll
go,
make this my
PJ.
final comment because then I'll go back to Facebook.
Okay, what's your final comment?
Well, Matthew 11, or Matthew 5, well, 10, 11, and 12
Yeah.
are my pet peeve verses
Ooh.
because I get so irritated with Christians. I'm being persecuted. I'm being
Yeah.
persecuted. Nobody likes me because I'm a
Yeah.
Christian. That's not the attitude we're supposed
No,
to
we're not
have.
supposed to have that attitude.
And it just irritates me when so many people anymore go to law. I mean, get offended. They don't like this. They don't like that. I'm
Right.
offended by this. I'm being persecuted because you believe gays can be saved or whatever. I feel like I'm being persecuted. Well, that doesn't sound like jumping for joy to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like rejoicing and be glad. That's how, real brief, that's how the early Christians won more converts was when they died in the arena joyfully.
Joyfully.
They sang hymns in the arenas when they were dying. And that was an incredible witness to the pagans.
Right.
And now it's a horrible witness to the pagans.
Right.
So all you Christians do is whine. So
Right.
my
That's a
pet
good point.
peeve, that's my pet peeve.
Okay. Eileen, Pat, either of you have a comment here?
Oh, just keep the faith.
Keep the
I was
faith.
thinking, that we're built on a strong foundation in Christ.
Yes, we
He's our
are.
foundation.
He is.
And in Matthew chapter 7:25, it says, when the rains fell and the floods came with fierce winds beating upon his house, it stood firm because it was the strong foundation.
That's exactly it.
So,
So we have to continue to grow in our relationship with God and what we understand, read the Word, and apply it to our daily lives and build that foundation. Good point. Becky?
It reminds me of my neighbor. She is such,
like the tone of voice.
Tone of voice, yeah.
she is such a pain in the butt.
Okay.
Every time the phone rings, I go, oh God, make it short. She's a cat? No. No, she rarely calls. This woman claims to have the worst of 11 different diseases.
Well, a lot of people do that. Yeah, that's how
And
they
she's
live.
always going, well, I don't know what I did to cause this.
Oh,
Blame,
you should
blame.
watch this Bible study.
Yes. the blame
She
game.
says she's religious.
Yeah,
It must be a TV church
yeah,
because she never leaves the house.
Yeah.
Unless it's going to the 50,000 doctors that she goes to.
right.
And I just, when she calls, it's like, oh Lord, please.
Well, see, a lot of people, that's where they get their attention. They get pitied that way.
Yeah.
They get, yeah.
Well,
And it can be very
Make it short.
frustrating.
That's all. Make it short.
Yeah.
I'm stepping out. Sorry. I'll
Gotta
call.
go.
Becky.
Yeah, gotta go.
She's your trial.
She's your trial. So let your light shine.
she, not only that, but she has, those real big manila envelopes. She carries,
Tons of them.
no, one, but all of her list of what's wrong with her
Yeah.
in that.
there.
But
Everywhere
you know what?
she drives a car to the mechanic to get it fixed. She's got that with her. What's the mechanic gonna do for her?
Okay. All right. Now we know Becky's pet peeve, and that's a good point. That's a good point. A lot of people go through life just like that, and that's no way to be victorious.
She does this with everybody.
Yeah.
And I've talked to my neighbors. We all avoid her like the
She
plague.
needs
Like the
Jesus.
plague,
That's right. Allie. Okay, we're gonna let Becky go on and do her thing, but on the sidelines here. Allie, any sum up comments here? PJ, did you have anything else to?
No, no.
Okay, go ahead, Allie.
I guess the hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul,"
Yes, it
just
is.
kind of resonates. every
My
time.
soul is well.
You're right. No matter what we go through,
That's
we
a,
stay connected to our
I have a
to our life source, God Almighty, our relationship with Him. Man, did God give you a poem tonight while we were doing all this?
God gave me a point tonight.
That is so unusual. Would you read it?
Okay. My friend, God is never asleep when we face difficult things. Comfort we will receive from Him, restoration He will bring. We should never accuse God as to as difficult things come our way. We really need to trust Him, looking to Him as we diligently pray.
Yes.
When we face trials in life, we may not understand such. However, we can learn from them and from God receive a touch. Ponder upon the goodness of God. He really does love and care for you. Always know and believe this. His love for you is so true. God allows things to come our way, knowing that our faith grows in Him. Through the difficulties that we face, we will much greater upon Him depend. When we go through difficult times, know that patience is growing. Being someone who trusts God is what others we are known. Focus yourself upon God. Don't be overwhelmed by what you face. Please know this one thing. You will make it by God's grace.
Amen.
Look to God for your strength. Believe me, you'll make it through. My friend, His love is great. He genuinely does love you.
Oh, that's good. That's great. We love the poems that God gives Nan. Amazing. She
She's
just
a
says,
poet?
yeah, she's a poet.
She
But
didn't know
she's
it?
a poet and does know it.
Oh,
Yeah.
does know it?
And tells us all that she's a poet.
she's a
Oh,
poet.
I don't know.
No, you don't do that. Allie, do you have a final comment, dear?
I do not, but it's just such a blessing to see you all on the screen. And thank you all for your prayers.
Oh, you got it. We'll continue to stay in touch with you, and we will love to have you surprise us sometime with a visit. That will be great. And we will continue to pray. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera. We will continue to pray that all of this will work out with your truck and all that. We thank God for that. So,
What type of truck?
big semi.
Oh,
Big semi.
She just started driving.
Yeah. So next week, Pastor Jim is going to lead the discussion for the next few weeks because next Tuesday morning I'm having a knee replacement surgery that is long overdue, 25 years of it. And so I'm doing that next Tuesday. So I'm going to join you perhaps on Zoom next Wednesday night if I'm feeling up to it. I will try my best to do that for a couple weeks. And he'll be here, so y'all join us. And as we go on in this book of Job, there's a lot to learn. Don't forget about our YouTube channel. It's capital letters BOHM, space global. Don't forget about our Sunday morning service. Still looking at the wrong camera. Don't forget about our Sunday morning service, 10 a.m. On Facebook, we come on right at 11 for the sermon. This week's title, oh gosh, I forget it, what I wrote down. Anyway, it'll be great. On Walking in Wisdom. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you,
Nan.
All right, we got everybody on. I'm watching the right camera, everything. All right, God bless every one of you. This has been Pastor Marcia, Pastor Jim, and the gang here at Beacon. And we'll see you next week, Lord willing. God bless you.